They're leaving California, they're packing up in New York, and they're heading to places like Texas, Florida, and Tennessee. But this isn't just about real estate. It's about freedom, opportunity, and survival. The question is, what does this great migration say about the American experiment itself? Every decade, the movement of people within the United States tells us something about the soul of the nation. Where we choose to live, or flee, reflects what we value, what we fear, and what we're no longer willing to tolerate. In recent years, that movement has reached a fever pitch. People are leaving the coasts, escaping high costs, dense cities, and political tension. But where are they going? And more importantly, why? Today we dive deep into the silent exodus reshaping America. This isn't just a story of where people are going. It's a story of what people believe, what they're running from, and what they're hoping to find. It's easy to assume that migration within a country as large as the United States is simply about job offers, family ties, or climate preferences. But beneath the surface of zip code changes and moving trucks lies something more profound, a shifting soul of a nation. Where Americans are going, and just as importantly, where they're leaving, is telling us everything we need to know about where the country is headed, what values are being redefined, and what it truly means to seek opportunity in 21st century America. Let's begin with the obvious. California is losing people. New York is bleeding residents. And in their place, states like Texas, Florida, Arizona, and Tennessee are gaining ground, not just in population, but in influence. What used to be known as flyover states are now destinations. What was once dismissed as a place you pass through has become a place people fight to get to. But why? For decades, California was the pinnacle of the American dream. It was where ambition met sunshine, where startups blossomed in garages and dreams came with beachfront views. But now, as cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco watch their streets fill with moving boxes instead of starry-eyed newcomers, we're forced to ask, what happened? The answer is layered. Cost of living is often cited first, and for good reason. In California, the price of a median home is now more than $800,000 in some major cities. In New York, a modest one-bedroom can cost you upwards of $3,500 a month in rent. But cost alone doesn't explain the exodus. Because when you dig deeper, you realize that people aren't just fleeing high prices. They're fleeing a sense of futility. Many of the people packing their lives into U-Hauls are middle-class professionals, teachers, nurses, police officers, people with degrees, steady jobs, and ambitions, not people you'd expect to see struggling. But they are. Because in cities that were once symbols of upward mobility, the ladder now feels like it's broken. The more you climb, the further away the top seems. A teacher in Los Angeles may earn $70,000 a year, but after taxes, rent, childcare, and commuting costs, she might be left with just enough to scrape by. She looks at her bank account at the end of the month and wonders, why does it feel like I'm doing everything right and still drowning? And that's the real pain point driving this migration. The disconnect between effort and reward. People aren't just moving for cheaper real estate. They're moving to feel like their work actually means something. They're chasing a quality of life that matches the sweat they put into their 9-to-5. And for millions, that dream no longer lives on the coasts. Take Boise, Idaho, for example. A decade ago, it was a sleepy city on nobody's radar. Today, it's among the fastest-growing metros in the country. Why? Because people realized they could buy a 4-bedroom house for the price of a closet in Brooklyn and still have access to decent schools, nature, and a sense of community. The same is happening in places like Nashville, Austin, and Raleigh, cities that are attracting not just remote workers, but entire industries. This shift isn't just physical, it's psychological. There's a reevaluation happening, a cultural recalibration. The pandemic accelerated it, but it didn't start there. COVID simply ripped the Band-Aid off a festering wound. That millions of Americans felt trapped in cities that promised them the world but delivered stress, debt, and disconnection. In 2020, when offices shuttered and employees were sent home with laptops and Zoom links, something clicked. People realized they could do their jobs from anywhere. And when the lease renewal email arrived asking for $400 more per month, many said, why? Why stay when I could live somewhere cheaper, cleaner, and calmer? Companies noticed too. Tech giants began opening campuses in Utah, Texas, and even Arkansas. What once seemed like an implausible move, relocating an entire business from Silicon Valley to the heart of the South, became a trend. Tesla moved to Texas. Oracle followed. Even Wall Street stalwarts began eyeing Miami and Dallas as serious contenders for their next headquarters. But let's be clear, this isn't just about economics, it's about identity. When people leave a place, they don't just abandon their zip code, they shed part of their cultural skin. A New Yorker moving to Tennessee isn't just swapping subway rides for highways. They're choosing a different rhythm of life, a different worldview, a different social contract. And that transition can be jarring. Culture shock is real. For every family thrilled to find a sprawling backyard in North Carolina, there's someone missing the food trucks and diversity of their old Brooklyn neighborhood. For every entrepreneur who thrives in Austin's tax-friendly ecosystem, there's someone who struggles with the slower pace and conservative leanings. This migration is not just about red states and blue states. It's about values. What do people want from their community? What kind of schools do they want their kids in? How do they define safety, prosperity, and success? In a way, America is sorting itself, not by race or religion, but by ideology and lifestyle preference. And that has profound implications. When like-minded people cluster, polarization increases. Urban progressives pack into coastal bubbles while conservatives move to suburban and rural strongholds. The middle ground, the purple states, the ideological cross-sections, begins to fade. This geographic sorting makes compromise harder, elections more volatile, and unity more elusive. And yet, despite the risks, this shift is also deeply human. It's about the pursuit of peace, possibility, and pride. Americans are not giving up. They're adapting. They're rewriting the rules of the American dream, taking it out of overpriced condos and placing it into community gardens, family dinners, and cities that still believe in upward mobility. And the story isn't over. In fact, it's just beginning. Because the next chapter of this migration will be defined not just by affordability, but by sustainability. Climate change is already influencing where people live. Rising sea levels, wildfires, and droughts are pushing Americans to think beyond property values and into questions of long-term livability. Florida, for instance, may be booming now, but as flood risks increase, will it remain a magnet? Will Arizona continue to thrive as summers grow more brutal and water becomes scarce? And what about the Midwest, long dismissed as the Rust Belt? Could it become the new Sun Belt as climate refugees seek safer, more temperate regions? We're also seeing another layer of complexity: immigration. As global conflicts, economic disparity, and climate issues displace millions, America remains a top destination. The newcomers, whether arriving legally or not, tend to cluster in cities that offer jobs, networks, and support. And that will once again reshape where Americans live, how they interact, and what the face of the country looks like. This is more than a migration, it's a metamorphosis. A silent, sweeping change is underway. One that is transforming small towns into boom towns, shifting political power inland, and redefining what success looks like in America. We are witnessing a population realignment not seen since the Great Migration or the post-war suburban explosion. And like all great shifts, it comes with pain, hope, fear, and possibility. When we ask, where are Americans moving? We're really asking, what kind of country are we becoming? Because every packed moving box, every signed deed, every long drive to a new beginning is a vote. Not for a politician, but for a way of life. A belief that somewhere out there the American dream is still alive, still attainable, still worth chasing. And that chase is changing everything. If you're thinking about relocating, consider this. Follow the jobs. Tech, finance, and media are now decentralized. But make sure your target city has economic momentum, not just hype. Do a cost-benefit analysis. Consider taxes, insurance, utilities, and education. Some states are cheaper up front but more expensive long-term. Visit before moving. Stay a week or two. Talk to locals. Get a feel for the neighborhood. The Instagram version of a place is often different than reality. Remote work won't last forever. Make sure your move makes sense even if you're called back to an office. Don't assume political alignment means cultural comfort. Just because a state is red or blue doesn't mean the local community shares your values. As of 2025, here's what we're seeing. Florida continues to lead the nation in inbound migration, especially to cities like Tampa, Orlando, and Miami. Texas is booming in areas like Austin, Dallas, and San Antonio, but housing prices are catching up. Arizona and Nevada are attracting retirees and remote workers alike. New York and California are seeing net population losses for the fourth year in a row, especially in urban cores. Some states like North Carolina and Idaho are emerging as surprising winners, thanks to affordability and quality of life. And here's a wild card: climate change. More people are now factoring in extreme weather, rising insurance costs, and long-term livability into their moving decisions. Let me leave you with this. Imagine a young family. 2 kids, 1 dog, both parents working remote jobs. They're tired of city stress, tired of watching their money disappear into rent and taxes. So they pack up and leave Los Angeles. They head east to North Carolina, where they buy a house with a yard, get involved in a local school, and finally feel like they're building a future again. That's not just a personal decision. It's a reflection of a national shift, a changing definition of what success looks like, what safety means, and what kind of life people want to live. America has always been about movement, from east to west, from farm to city, from north to south. And now, the compass is spinning again. The question isn't just where people are moving. The question is, what does that movement say about the soul of this nation? Because where we go tells the story of who we are becoming. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I really appreciate you watching. If you found this useful, a like would be fantastic, and subscribing helps me keep creating content you'll hopefully enjoy. Please share your experiences and any questions in the comments. I always try to read and respond. Your support keeps this channel going. Until our next video, take care.